Hi, this is John Elefante, and you're listening to a couple of wild and crazy guys, Wild Man and Steve.
You are about to listen to the intersection of faith, talk, and music. The Wild Man and Steve show starts right now.
So, Steve, before we started tonight, I was reminded of an idea I had a long time ago. And I believe I shared this idea with you at one point. It may have been in one of our episodes. I mean, come on, we've done so many episodes now. It's impossible to remember. I mean, we're so well known all across the globe. And then, it's just sometimes you got to fight the people off when you and I try to go somewhere, go out and the paparazzi and
all. Oh, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so the idea I had was, being a podcaster now. I've been a podcaster now for, I would say, roughly about 10, 12 years, I believe is what I would say. And, but yeah, believe it or not, I was a podcaster before I brought you on. I did, I didn't need you to succeed. Let me just put it that way. But, I did do something before I brought you on, just so you know. But the idea I had was, has anybody ever tried a silent podcast?
A silent podcast?
Yes.
You mean where we would, for example, for the bumper music, we would only play things recorded by mimes?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's ever been done for what I would like to think would be obvious reasons, but
I don't know. I mean, I wonder how many listeners you could get if you had a silent podcast. I've been thinking about this, because I've been thinking about you and, this whole Wild Man and Steve thing. And is it Wild Man and Steve or Steve and Wild Man? We all know what it is. And you even told me one time, if you had your dream, it would be the Steve show, right? You said that kind of tongue.
Of course.
Yeah, you said that. So that's my idea for you, sir. In fact, I'll produce and edit it for you. The Steve Show, the first silent podcast.
Have I ever told you that I never really liked you? I mean, I don't know if I'd ever actually communicated that to you directly, but why would you say that? Why would you hurt my feelings on the broadcast? This is going to go out to our millions of fans. Our brother Jay has got to edit this, and it just. You hurt deep is what you do. You cut deep. You cut deep, man.
Well, you know what? Evidently, I'm not cutting deep enough because you keep coming back. It's not working. I'm doing everything I can. Right.
Just like a bad penny, baby. I keep coming back.
Almost like that pimple that won't go away. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, rate that opening. Hashtag Wildman and Steve at Wildman and Steve. Let us know how good that opening was. And
don't bother, people. That opening was terrible. It was a terrible opening.
We'll edit that out. Nobody's going to hear you say that. So yes, go ahead and rank that opening because now, we are getting close, I would say. Now that we're up to 110, I think, something like that, 110 episodes. I think you and I are getting to the point where we're probably experts at the opening. We're probably, we're just.
If at nothing else.
Yes.
If at nothing else. And we may be expert at nothing else. But at least the opening, we got that down pat.
But hey, again, if you have a silent podcast, you could be expert at nothing.
Whoa, that's deep, my man.
Yeah, you could be the first one to be.
You know what? I'd have to get rights to The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. That'd be my theme music.
But nobody would be able to hear it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm so stupid.
What are you talking about?
Man, 32 years ago, I had a cassette collection that would blow the doors off anyone else.
Really?
Yeah, man, I had a big cardboard box full of cassettes. You name it, it was there. I'm talking about anything from Phil Keaggy to Petra to Holy Soldier to Resband to Bride to Tamplin to Leviticus, White Cross, Barren Cross, Neon Cross. You name it, it was there.
Wow. I'd love to see that sometime.
Well, that's just the thing. I'm just plain stupid.
Why? What are you talking about?
I don't have them anymore.
I'm sorry. What?
I let them go. Some I gave away, others over the years of multiple moves. I just lost track.
Well, we live and we learn.
Well, that's just it. How can I learn from something like that? How could I possibly begin to rebuild my collection?
Girder.
I mean, what would really be great would be to rebuild my collection with CDs. I mean, streaming is great and all, but there's something about...
Girder.
You know what would be great? If there was a company where I could go, who could have all those cassettes that I used to have in CDs, instead of spending hours searching, I could just go to one company, one-stop shop.
Girder.
I'm sorry, what?
Girder. Girder is just the place to rebuild your collection. They have it all. Petra, Resband, Bride, the list just goes on and on. Go to girdermusic.com today and relive those moments of great music you used to love.
Wow, girdermusic.com. You're right. I'm looking at it right now. I can't believe this. I can rebuild my whole collection with CDs and even vinyl. So, hey, I guess this means I'm not stupid after all.
The jury's still out on that one.
All right, so now here I'm going to turn it over to, as everybody, our listeners know, turn it over to Mr. Segway. He is the one, Steve Perkins, Latin teacher, rock and metal enthusiast, who now is known to one and all as Mr. Segway. He always segues our tremendous guests, and we have a tremendous guest once again tonight. So, Mr. Segway, take it away.
Well, I've got a request of you, Wild Man, and it's a little bit awkward because you're a pastor, and I'm a little hesitant to ask this. And if you decide that this should not be on the show, we just tell our editor Jay to cut this out, I suppose. But I've got a question. I wondered if you could help me acquire some alcohol. And the reason I'm asking for this is, you recall that great Don McLean song, American Pie. And he talks about them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing "This Will Be the Day That I Die." And we all know what whiskey is. I mean, even if you don't consume the beverage, at least you know. I think most people probably know what whiskey is. I've never experienced rye, and I wondered if you would be able to set me up with some rye. And if you find that question inappropriate, then I apologize to you up front, and we'll just go out and have a Diet Coke. But I didn't know if you might be able to connect me with some rye.
You mean instead of white and wheat? Is that what you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just going with the song. We're rock and roll people. Everybody knows that song, especially rock people. And I've always heard the lyric all my life. Whiskey and rye, singing "This Will Be the Day That I Die." And I'm going, well, what's with the rye? I want to spend some time with some rye. You understand what I'm saying? I want to understand the rye.
Yes.
So,
well, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Segway has struck again, because we are going to experience Rye tonight. In fact, we're going to experience Sly Rye, the guitarist of the Metal Byrds. Hey, Sly Rye, welcome to the program. And how are you doing today, sir?
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Wild Man Steve. I wanted to tell Steve, bona dies. That's my Latin for today.
Dude, well said, sir.
Wow.
Good day to you as well.
Yeah. So before we go any further, Mr. Rye, how would you rank that opening? I mean, we've never asked a guest, actually. Some guests have chimed in and just told us their opinion. But we've never asked them, have we? So maybe this could be the first time we could ask our guest, tell us an honest opinion. Rank that opening from 1 to 10.
Some of the people that you can't see off camera with their lab coats and their clipboards with the big computer tape spinning, you can't see it. It's just off camera. They were almost confused because the Rye segue before I was introduced came off the silent one. So they weren't sure, were you going for a direction of we need to just keep Steve like in a box and then you get all the one-liners and jokes, or do we let Steve talk about like feelings in Latin to, you know what I mean, to kind of round the crowd. Right now everybody here is saying 5 out of 5. So am I. 5 stars out of 5.
Rock and roll, baby. Rock and roll.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah.
And I appreciate that, Ryan. And just for anybody who would be considering and thinking, hey, maybe Steve should be, put in a box. I'm just going to quote Patrick Swayze from the immortal film Dirty Dancing. Nobody puts baby in the corner, and nobody puts Stevie in a box.
Nice.
Yeah, very good. Well, I wonder, Steve, we'll get to you in a second, right? So Steve, I wonder, you're as a rock and metal enthusiast, you've told me before you love the bluesy rock sound. I'm just curious, and Rye might be able to help you with this. Has there ever been a Latin blues song?
No, there's been Latin rock. In fact, there was a group called, I think, something like Rondellas or something. They did an album full of Black Sabbath songs recorded with, I think it was like 15th or 16th century instruments. So they had kind of rearranged everything, and I remember War Pigs was on there, and they translated all the lyrics into Latin, every song. So there's been that, and then there's been metal albums with classical themes. There's a band, Heimdall, that did an entire album. Every song was based on a different book of Virgil's Aeneid. Mm-hmm. But I don't know about blues Latin. Mm-hmm. No.
Well, I'm going to have to interrupt you there, Steve, because we do have a show, we have a guest, so it's not all about you. Okay? It's not all about you. So we got to go to the guest now. Wow. So anyway, right.
Yes, Wildman, yes.
So tell us, how did you first get started in music and playing guitar?
My dad was a record collector. My uncles all had record collectors. So as a small kid, any family get together or whatever, somebody would play everything from the Cars to hair metal. And my parents had records that were from the Everly Brothers, still big collectors. Their collection's half now because they're older, but I was constantly listening to music in the house because they were not TV people. They were stereo people, always. So the guitar comes in where I would pick around on their acoustics, and they're like, you need to learn the Ventures. Boy, you need to learn. And it was all that kind of surf music. And that really stuck with me for a long time. That's when I realized the 50s and 60s and 70s were by far the most creative. And then when it comes to the 80s, it all wrapped up nice and tight.
Yeah.
That's well said. That's well said. Now, you guys are located in Austin, Texas. Am I right?
Houston.
Oh, Houston. So did you grow?
Everybody in the band lives down there. The taxes are driving me out of the area, so we're selling half the ranch, and I'm getting a place in Houston.
Oh, okay. So did you grow up in Texas?
No, grew up in Michigan and then moved here. So I was a little kid from Michigan, but been here a long time.
Gotcha. The reason I asked that because there's obviously such a great music scene, especially in Austin, known so well for their live music. So I thought I had seen a connection there online about you guys in Austin. So cool.
Well, this is where originally years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, 4 this year. Some friends of mine from work said, there's this girl that wants to come over and sing. And we were playing in the barn. And people would come over and we'd listen to music and everybody would kind of jam out. And Suzanne came walking in and I heard her say something derogatory like, this place looks like the road from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I was like, who is this chick? And that's when he said, this is the girl that's going to sing. So the first not liking her, as soon as we said, what can you sing? And she says, I can do all the Axl parts. So we tried Sweet Child of Mine and Rocket Queen. And she was doing the She could do all those. It's like, you want to be our singer? That's how it started with the band.
Not long ago, summer had come so early, and we didn't know how it seemed to change forever. Those were the best times, singing the songs we both liked, not feeling alone. The stars were aligned on that night, watching reruns of the Twilight Zone. Next to you, nothing could be better. Dancing for
How many people do you know that can, there's a lot of bands that do those songs, but to reach the high notes is like, oh, I'm sold.
Right. So you've been together. So the Metal Byrds, then you've been together for 3 years,
Yeah, the winter of 2004.
4 years.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what got that's how you got Suzanne. How did the rest of the band?
Everybody else was already here. They were already coming up to jam out and party on their weekends off. Because my barn, there's almost 14 acres here, and it's mostly dead fruit trees. So there isn't a lot going on. So the barn, it has a refrigerator, has like a mini bar, has like a little stage in it. So it's just fun to hang out, and then turns into a cookout.
Well, we're wanting to, hopefully after this episode, the Metal Byrds will be just world famous, okay? We're wanting to catapult you guys to the world stage, because if any of you folks listening to this have not checked out the Metal Byrds, actually hit pause on the podcast and just go do that. Go listen to their music. These guys, if you are into, and you hear us say it so often, it's almost becoming a tagline for us, that classic 70s and 80s kind of sound. These guys are it. It's like, if you listen to these guys, it's like listening to some favorite artist, but an album that you somehow missed, or you like, wow, I didn't know they recorded that. It's got that familiar feel, and yet it's obviously brand new stuff. These guys are, recording here and now. So let's talk to you here a little bit. You mentioned
Thank you, by the way.
Listen, we're going to say more specifically about your music, and you already kind of alluded to the fact that you grew up listening to music and a variety and so forth. But as a band, how did you really center on the particular sound that you have?
Steve, you're gonna love this. We can't find the hillbillies that we had mixing for us turned into different people, and then Ray got involved, and we were like, "Thank you." With the sound, we use Marshall and Crate amps, and you can't hear that in our recordings. But we're hoping this time around you can. I like a little bit of delay. I want some crunch. Let the bass line drive, and it's hard to mix. But to get that sound, it's only because we all kind of write the same way. Okay, time for a D. Okay, time for an A.
Yeah. So you mentioned the writing. Do all of you participate together in the songwriting, or does each one take a song, or how does that work?
Suzanne will usually go through something that Kevin and I have written, and she'll say, I won't sing that. You guys don't know how to write, and you need a spell check. And then we'll be like, thanks, Suzanne. And then it turns into a battle for about 40, 50 minutes before we can actually even play anything. And she'll say, let me fix it. And then she fixes it. So this time around, the new record that we have coming out, we're trying to get it fixed now or mixed or whatever. And she actually wrote about half of it. That was it. She said, I want something with Fleetwood Mac vibe. I want something with Journey vibe. I want something. So we just kept going back to draw all the other stuff. She was like, I like all the power popness of it. But some of the words were dreadful. She's right about that. Some of the words were terrible.
Somewhere out there on the distant horizon, I make my way down this dark highway, leaving my home to make it on my own. Just me out there and this long and lonely road. I'd always knew this would happen someday. Oh my dear God, please show me the way. Yeah, 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 yeah. I drive all night, no sleep, no destination.
So what are you just mentioned, like, Fleetwood, and if you go on, anybody goes online, they'll see comparisons of her to Pat Benatar and Blondie. I think more in the sense of a strong female sound. Not that I don't. She certainly doesn't sound like Blondie really, but the point being that strong female sound. But what specific influences, maybe kind of go just think about around the band there that what specific influences did you guys have that you really enjoyed? You're like, man, I just dig on this. I really groove on this. And that it definitely makes its way into your sound, whether it be the lyrics or the actual music.
I'm glad you asked that, because we all, from that first night, it was like, you like classic rock? You listen to the classic vinyl on Sirius XM? You listen to Ozzy's Boneyard? We were all surprised how we all listened to those way back tunes now are 40 years old, and we can't believe there isn't more bands, not the ones that are trying to do hairstyle, but more with more of a, like what you said, the style of it, that 70s, because it's so catchy and fun. It's like everyone wants to write one of those tunes because they're fun.
And that's one of the things I would say, too, to the listeners out there. As Steve said, if you haven't heard the Metal Byrds yet, make sure it's BYRDS. Go check them out because it is fun. It's fun music to listen to. There's no question. It has that exciting, that energy vibe to it. Great guitar hooks, and Suzanne's got that resonating voice as she sings, which is incredible. So make sure to check them out. So we do need to go here for a moment, Rye, and that is where did the name come from?
Okay, Suzanne, we were all arguing about what we should be called, because we were called Wild Man Steve's Adventure. And, that was just known to us in the barn. And, all of the people were like, that's pretty cool. You guys were drinking that night, weren't you? Yeah, okay, maybe. But so Suzanne says, I have the perfect name for a band. And we're like, how's that? And she said, I work around aviation. I've been in aviation for a decade. She's actually got a pilot's license. And she said, it should be a metal bird. And we were like, oh, birds like England? And she said, birds like England with a Y because of the English connection, me being an English citizen. But she said, that's what we call planes, or metal birds, so they can come in and attack. They can be light. They can be humanitarian. A metal bird is something that gets the job done. In this case, it will be rock and roll. We went, whoa, that's heavy.
Oh, it's heavy, but you do so much with it in terms of merchandising and logo and stuff. You can just go every direction with it. She's got ideas. I just like to crank out songs. We just want to get songs out, and then she drags her feet.
So tell me about, talk to us about the, you mentioned the songwriting, and I know I talked to you before specifically about the song Absolute. And you do notice that, some of your songs, you can just tell they're just fun. They're just, life of the party. They're just fun. They're like fist pumping, but others have a particular message you're trying to get across. So specifically of Absolute, can you explain to our listeners the background behind that song?
we were thinking, we had that riff for probably 7 or 8 months, and we're always singing different things over it. And Suzanne says, we need an adult song because everyone we know has a problem. Then it's like, okay, sit down, let's pay attention. What has she got now? And she's like, everyone we know is either addicted to alcohol, food, their work, their family, something bizarre where they're obsessed, but it's not everybody, and it's only pieces. The people that are really absolutely into something, it's usually bad, and they won't change until they want to. So that's why she has that line in there and said, this song is about those that really struggle, and they can change if they want to, but a lot of times they don't even see they're in it, because she had a neighbor that was a pretty bad drinker, and he's currently, this is a year later or whatever, he's going to rehab now, but he was one of these functioning up, and she would watch him every day and then have conversations and just see there's all kinds of problems, because everyone their whole life knows somebody that's messed around with something, and it's not good. You have to decide to leave it. And that's why she said, hand on the bottle. It was like, okay, that's pretty cool, Suzanne. That's me picking out some classic early 80s like Rhodes and stuff, that ticka 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 ticka, and that's something that's a fun solo, and then it has the big kiss, Ace Frehley, wah, wah. That's like all my favorites.
Yeah,
that's where I want to go. I want to talk about this last album that you have out. I think it came out in 2021. Your album 4.
Yeah.
So I'm chatting with Wildman earlier today. We're talking about getting ready for the show, and I said, I'm going to have a really hard time not using a certain phrase during this show. Now, fans of the show know this. You may well know this. Most of the artists we have on are Christian rock, Christian metal, sometimes other genres, but most of the time, occasionally a secular artist, but most of the time Christian. And obviously he's a pastor. I'm a Christian as well. But there is a particular phrase that is so appropriate for your music, and I thought maybe you could help us out here. I want to say a phrase that starts with kick and rhymes with something like bath. Okay? And I don't know what to say, because, I think that might be offensive if I said the phrase that we now all have in our minds, but that's the only phrase to describe that album, start to finish. I'm listening to that thing, and it is just, it's brutal but again, in a fun way. I think a word we're going to come back to across this interview is the word fun. It is fun music. Wildman used the phrase fist pumping. It's fist pumping music. You've got ridiculous solos on there that fans of that style of music, we just love it. Those of us who don't play, we immediately start going into air guitar because it's just so inspiring. So tell us a little bit about where you're going with that style from here. You mentioned the new album that you're working on, and then maybe she kind of wanted to go some different directions, but are you still going to have those great guitar solos?
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm trying to think. The first single we have out that will be coming, I think it's going to mixing today. It's a pop tune. You know, if you notice, for like all the other little records we have, it's a pop tune, a rock tune, a classic rock tune. They all follow the pattern because that's the only circle we can write in. One's the lightest, then all the way around, and one's the heaviest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, Ray, when he reached out to us about mixing that, Midnight with You, for example, is an acoustic song now. But when we first used to do it 2 years ago, we always did it as a rock, and I had a little run all the way through it, and it's really garage sounding. And Ray said that's too good of a tune to let just go to obscurity. That's a good sing-along tune. Let me help you work on it. So we had Ray. That's why we started working with him, right? He's fun, and you know I'm talking about, Robo, and so.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. You sure?
Yeah, and he was right. It's a better acoustic song for like a campfire than like this indie college radio thing we thought we had.
Sure. Yeah. So, I've seen you post several times on social media about being an indie artist and the struggles of being an independent artist. And if I remember correctly, I think you're the first one that I saw that coined the hashtag indie artists do it all. Okay. So for the listeners that are out there, just so you can understand, Rye works a full-time job. And sometimes it probably seems more than full-time from what I can understand. And yet he does this on the side. Okay. So talk to us. Let the listeners know today, what are the struggles that an indie artist faces that the common fan doesn't realize?
The money it takes to organize just to get together everyone in the band to play, just to have everyone to show up to your house, just to rehearse requires time, right? And everyone's time is worth money. Then you have to learn it, figure out how you want to play it. So you spend twice as much time just to come up with a song. Then when you want to record it, that costs money and time, somebody to mix it, somebody to master it, more money, and then to beg and pray mostly that radio stations and shows will have you on, you know, and then again and again, or tell you the most complicated. Now it's all of a sudden worth all that money and time you spent. For some song that took 2 months, when stations, you know, like, I can't remember when Life of the Party first came, there was like 40 that hit us back that first week. This is fantastic. It's going into rotation. This is fantastic. We're going to play it every 8 hours. This is fantastic. And that song in particular was about everybody that's been supportive. They're the life of the party. You know, Suzanne says, look at me. But that's what the radio and the podcast and the shows are doing. They're putting that spotlight on those indie bands, because if nobody gives them any time, you know how much good music I've heard. I'm really indie headed for the last 2 years. Really love listening to all these different artists. I prefer all the rock, but I will sit through some country or something else just to hear where they're going. So that indie bands do it all, outside of the total cost and the hope and pray that you get played. Then you have to hope a label or a marketer comes by, and then they can't offer you money. They want this much of the copyright. They won't book your gigs. We talk to a lot of signed bands. Oh, Lord, I can't imagine some of these bands that have like 60 gigs in the next 3 months. They still use a booking agent that they had before they were signed. So they're paying that label that they're signed to pieces of that gig, even though it was with a booking agency that's not the record label. So they're eating Taco Bell every night in a band together, not like the struggling musician, because the label's not giving them anything. So as an indie band that way, going from town to town to town, if you had the time to do it, you're really doing everything on your own. But that's okay. Apples are cheap and right, they're easy to eat. So if we were to go on the road, I'd be eating tons of apples.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, how was that for a long-winded? Just
well, no, that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
There's a lot more to this conversation. We'll get back together with the boys and Rye.
Next week, the dynamic duo returns.
Same Wildman and Steve time, same Wildman and Steve channel.
The Wild Man and Steve Show is now partnering with New Release Today. Find out more about them at newreleasetoday.com. And don't forget to check out our website, where you can also leave us a review at wildmanandsteve.com.
Hell is no party, hell is no fun. Face the maker in a crowd of one. Hell is no party.
That sounds like rock and roll to me.